Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
For that, right?
I'm blowing the dust off my microphone. It's been a hot minute.
I know. All right, so basically today on the podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about credit. And so I've been looking through Facebook, and I've been following Dylan through Facebook, just seeing his different posts and stuff. And the guy's all over the place. Every time I turn around, he's at a different mortgage company, a different realtor, brokerage, doing lunch and learns and stuff like that. So Dylan does a whole lot of marketing for the company, right? So he was just telling me a minute ago that he kind of knows where his position is, and that we were kind of agreeing that you can't control all of it in one spot. He's like, look, I really like going out and doing that, so that's what I do. He's like, I really enjoy it. So I'm going to give Dylan here a minute to introduce himself really quick and the company he's working with, and then we'll get into a little bit of the credit kind of basics today. We're going to do hopefully 5 episodes if we can get to that many, and just cut it all in.
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me. So again, guys, my name is Dylan Shively. I actually own James Warren Group. And before I go any further than that, typically when people hear that sentence, they're like, okay, well, your name's not James, but it's not Warren. So how the hell did that come about?
Yeah.
Right? But it brings me to my favorite part of anything, of all of this. So my middle name is James. That's not the important part, but Warren is my grandfather's name on my dad's side.
Oh, that's cool.
And my grandfather and I were very, very close to each other, literally to the day that he passed. So when people ask me, I get to bring him back up and make him relevant again.
That's cool.
That's awesome. And that's my favorite part of it all.
It's a good way to keep it going, like no matter what.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I started the business back in 2017. And the reason I started it was because I wound up being in about mid to late 2016 in a situation where I needed help. I went to another company. I won't name their names, but it is something that everybody probably knows if they've ever been in the situation. And long story short, they took a lot of my money, didn't deliver the results. I couldn't even communicate with them unless it was time to put money back into the escrow account. So when they were due money, they would get a hold of me. So I've been in this situation that clients come to me now every day, and I truly understand from being a client how it feels to either pay a company and not get results, or pay a company and they don't communicate. Because at the end of the day, in a service-based industry, especially that doesn't have the greatest stigma, like I don't pretend like that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You think of credit repair, and there's either a mental thing that happens in your head, like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
Or there's that in your gut feeling, whether it's a personal experience or somebody that you know that has went through credit repair and didn't have a good experience.
Yeah.
There's more people who had a bad one than people who had a good one.
Seems like to me there's a lot of companies out there that really, they probably have a good intention on the beginning, but they kind of just like accumulate clients and then they just feed off that monthly.
Right. I don't think that everybody goes into it with a bad intent. And to be clear, you have half the world when you listen to like podcasts and books and stuff like that. Half the people say, oh, chasing money is a bad thing. Don't be about the money. Then you got the other half that is like, no, it has to be about the money because how do you pay the bills, right? So there's always that 50-50. And I think in my industry, which it's perfectly okay in any industry that you're in, you're getting into a specific industry for yourself at first, right? You are going for the money, and that's okay. Nobody said that your perspective or your why or your purpose cannot change as you develop.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the people who don't change that in my industry and stick with just the money, that's what they wind up getting, a bunch of money in a short period of time. They get overwhelmed and they didn't make sure that their systems and processes and things were put in place, that they have good customer service and they can deliver on the things that they're saying, and they're not just a salesperson.
Right.
There's somebody who's going to be able to deliver on the shit that they're saying they're going to do.
Yeah.
So
I can agree with
that is, and of course I'm a little biased in my opinion, but I think that's one of our major differences.
Yeah.
You know, but rather than me saying that, go check our Google reviews and stuff and what partners have to say.
Right.
That is what has helped us expand so big in San Antonio, because we're actually originally from Pennsylvania. I moved here July of 2020.
Okay.
And the closest, okay.
That explains the horse and buggy in the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah. Not the Amish part of PA. But
my bad.
Right.
I was about an hour away from Philly. So anybody who lives here, like if you say Philly, they know it. If you say anything other than that, they're like, what?
What?
You from Allentown?
Yeah. So actually, I was closer to Allentown. I was about 30 minutes from Allentown.
How
wow.
about that?
Look at that.
He's a northeastern guy.
Yeah. Well, I drove through PA all the time when I was stationed in New York. My parents live in Delaware. So
Okay.
I drove down the Pennsylvania Turnpike all the time.
I'm so sorry.
Those cops are horrible, man. I got a
Yeah.
speeding ticket on there.
Yep.
I was driving by. I saw this like stick coming out of the
Yep.
woods. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I passed by, and attached to that stick is a cop. And I'm like, oh, they have like these big poles that they stick through the trees.
That's weird.
And so he wrote me a ticket. So
He like had a mic boom hanging out with a
he
camera
did.
on it.
It was probably about
Like
like
that.
6 foot. It was crazy.
Wow.
I was like, what the hell is that? I was just sitting there like, what is that? And I go, oh, it's a cop.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, there's lights.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
I'm
for me.
getting pulled over.
Yeah.
Aw, crap.
Yep.
Anyway, back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So originally we're from Pennsylvania. When we moved here, we didn't know anybody. So the closest people to here that I knew were in PA.
Wow.
That's 2000.
It's a long network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I became my first customer because I was like, well, hey, I'm paying this company all this money. Let me see if I can do it myself. I started Googling things. And even as a current credit repair business owner, for anybody that's listening, you can do it yourself. You don't need to use me. You know,
Yeah.
that's probably crazy to say, but that's true. You can do it yourself.
Yeah.
The only reason you're ever going to pay a credit repair company is if you want us to do the legwork and to coach you through it. And so you're essentially paying us for convenience.
Right.
But don't let any company ever tell you in my industry that, hey, we have this magic potion that we can do this and this, you know, fairy dust, and we know somebody at the bureaus and all this fancy stuff they try to tell you.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It is not true. All we did was we spent more time than the last person learning how the laws work. And then just like any other lawyer does, because not that I'm claiming a lawyer title, but we're similar in the line of work that you've been through a situation like you got pulled over by the stick cop, and you can either go defend yourself or you could go get a lawyer that you'd hate to pay, but if he wins to get you out of the sentence or the fine or whatever, it winds up being worth it.
Right.
That is literally the same concept in how I make the analogy for credit repair. You can do it yourself. You can defend yourself. You could go about things yourself. You only pay us if it comes to convenience, right? If you say like, hey, I don't want to deal with that. I want somebody else to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's where we come in. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of like with us outsourcing a lot of the stuff that we outsource with the virtual assistants. Like,
Yeah.
look, these are non-income producing tasks that we really need to get done. And why not pay somebody else to do it?
Right. I think that's huge. Like as a business owner in any industry, I think it's super important to understand that you have money-making activities, right? The things that if you spend your time on and you can turn that valve harder than anybody to produce the most income for your business, that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Anything that does not produce income, then you need to delegate that to somebody and say, okay, can I pay this person, like for how much I pay this person? Because you also don't want to cheap them out either, but can I pay this person good enough to where they're happy with what they're doing? And how much money can I make by that time I've just freed up doing the other thing that I want to focus on doing?
Yeah.
And if you can figure those things out, that's how you can grow your business in any industry.
Right. So let me ask you this. Let's start off at you know, obviously you were in the military. So
Yes.
you get out of the military, give me a little bit of a timeline breakdown on what got you to doing credits.
Yeah.
Like what got you interested in the business?
So once I got out, the first job that I got, I went in when I was 17, and to save the time, I was I wasn't hanging around the right people. I got in a lot of trouble. So I was actually one of those people that I was like, hey, you can wear this or you can wear that.
Right.
So I was 17. My parents, signed off on it, right?
Yeah.
And I went off. So when I came home, the first job that I got was in sales, and I was selling cars.
Yep.
So,
Been there.
so I sold cars for about 6 years. So I went from a salesperson to the TO manager, the closing manager. Then I went to F&I, and then I changed out of that company because I was trying to get a new car because I always wanted a demo. And I feel like with every promotion, they said, oh, the next level gets you a demo, but then they would change something where I don't get the demo.
Yeah.
So I want a new car.
Pay plan change, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. And so then I went to another company, and their GSM, so I'm not claiming this like, oh, it's all my hard work and whatever.
Right.
The GSM happened to leave at the same time that I got onboarded, which that's how I got hired so quick because they needed a warm body.
Yeah.
And so then I had to learn all the roles of the GSM. I got tired of it. The money was great. I did finally get the demo. I was driving an hour and a half plus to work every day, 6 days a week. I missed tons of birthdays, funerals, weddings, get-togethers, holiday stuff. I missed it all. And as I started to make the money, I realized, well, okay, I can make this anywhere, but I'm missing way too many important things. And that's when I transitioned into retail sales. I went to Verizon. And I took a major pay cut, but I was okay with it because the commute to that store was 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you got so much time back.
Right. So wear and tear on the car, wear and tear on my body. I hate the morning. I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning for like 6 years. I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So, then I went to Verizon. And it's funny because I remember my family, just saying like, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yep. I'm telling you, I'm done.
It's an easy checkbox.
Yep.
Like, I'm out.
So when they told me like, hey, just so you know, it is retail sales. You do work a lot of hours. Most weeks you will do about 45 to 50 hours. I'm like, what do I do with the other 35, 40 hours?
It's like I do that by Wednesday normally.
Right. Right. So I went through that, and I wound up moving through the ranks pretty quick, which was cool. So I went as a store manager to a district manager, and then I wound up becoming a managing partner, and I got to buy one of their locations that was about 2 hours away from where I've always lived. Oh, wow. And I'm like, damn, here I go again, doing another drive. And I wound up buying the store. I moved there, and then that's how I actually met my wife. I was saying, hey, I can sell one of my cars that I have, and so I can put my investment money in, or I could go to the bank and get a loan. And so I figured like the business person in me, even though I was new to business, but like I was thinking I know everything, the business person in me is like, hey, let me go to the bank that's in the parking lot of the same store that I'm buying, and maybe in the future we can exchange business because I got a loan through them. Right. And I got so much more than that, I wound up meeting who today is my wife. So
that was pretty
cool.
Pretty much better
than a toaster.
Yeah.
For sure. Or a free phone or something like that.
Yeah. So then it was about 2 years of doing that. And I started to pick up credit because I was trying to fix my own, and that whole story of using the other company and whatever. Yeah. Come to find out, I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at this. And I'm a big social media person, as you know. I've always been that way for years. So I posted the results, and I was really excited about the progress that I made. And when I posted it, I didn't realize how many people were going to comment and message me that were people in the same boat. Right. And so I just started offering help. Do this, pay this down, apply for this, do this, do this. This is what I did. This is how you dispute things. This is
and you were doing this for free.
Yeah.
Giving it away.
And then I started to realize when I was having hard months at the store, because, now I'm responsible. Like I do my own P&Ls. I got to get my own inventory. Like everything is on me. So when I would have a loser month, I had to cough up my piece, just like when we would earn well, I would get my piece. Right. So I was like, wait, where can I get extra money? I can't work more hours because I pay myself. So that's where I started to push credit repair harder. And I was using that money to actually float the months when we wouldn't do well in retail. Wow. And then I wound up selling the store, went full time, and here we are.
Nice. So you called it the James Warren Group again after your middle name and then your grandfather's name. Yep. So now you're in San Antonio. How long have you been in San Antonio?
Since July of 2020.
That's right. You said
so 18 months, give or take. Somewhere right around there.
Yeah, and business is booming. And you don't really have to be based in a central location and work in that market. You can work. Right. Because you got marketing skills, right?
Right. I have. I'm licensed and bonded in all 50 states too. So as far as compliance and things go, I'm actually like legally licensed and available to do work in those states. So,
Yeah. Nice.
you know, I'm covered in both aspects.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the credit basics and like Joe Schmo walks in off the street.
Yeah.
Hasn't got a clue. He wants to get a loan, but everybody that he's talked to is telling him basically, hey, look, your scores are too low. He's like, what score? Right?
Yep.
So can you kind of break it down for people that maybe don't even know what it means to have, what a score actually means, what it is, and kind of what it all entails?
Yep. So you have your FICO scores, right? There's Vantage Score and there's FICO Score. FICO Score is used by over 90% of lenders. So if you're trying to buy a home, if you're trying to get a personal loan, you want to get a car, you want to get a credit card, you want to get a store card to get that 15% off, which, by the way, don't do that. But if you do those things,
Retail cards are shit.
right?
Just
Literally, like most of them don't even report to your credit report. That's a whole nother thing anyway. But first things first, you got to know FICO Score is what you want to look at. So any
And that's
platform,
one number?
So I wish I could say yes, but believe it or not, it's almost 20 of them.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll go into that too.
Okay.
So because you know every time you apply for something, there's always a different score.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
if you're like, oh, I looked at this app and it says my score is this. Then you go to try to buy the car and they have a completely different score, right?
Yeah.
It's because there's different versions of those FICO scores. So because you can finance so many things nowadays, like even your phone, all of those have a different version of your FICO score because what they want to do is get a more dialed in version of your ability to pay back what you borrow.
Okay. So
Because,
if you're buying a car,
right.
and then you go in, the lender looks for your score. They're
You
going to
have
look for
an
the
auto
score
score.
that relates to other loans and auto loans that
Correct.
you had, right?
Correct.
Doesn't matter if there's like medical stuff on there.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So for example, there's FICO 2, 4, and 5, which is used in mortgage.
Okay.
And then there's FICO 8, 9, 10, and 10T. And then remember, you have 3 bureaus per version. And those bureaus don't change. TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, those are all the same.
Yeah.
But there's different versions that are always going to have different numbers because depending on the type of loan you're trying to get, they want to see how you borrow other like accounts. So for example, when you're trying to get a credit card, that's going to be your FICO 8 score.
Okay.
Right? And that you could go right on Experian for free and look at your Experian FICO 8 score. And that's going to be what they use, most companies, for your credit cards. So a second version of this, or a second reason that the scores are different, is because depending on where people are pulling your scores from, or companies where they're pulling your score from, that's the only place they're going to report. So for example, let's say you get a Kohl's card because it gives you 15% off. Again, don't do that, but people do it.
Yeah.
So if you get that Kohl's card, you save your 15%. Well, if you got approved and they'll send you the document that they pulled this bureau, you get it in the mail, and it's your Experian score. Well, then that means now it's only going to report on your Experian credit report because they only pulled your Experian score. So if you look at credit reports, and you're looking at all 3 bureaus, the reason each score is different is because not all things report on all 3 bureaus. So if you can say, hey, I have this card and I have an auto loan and I have a mortgage, but why does each bureau say that I have a different score?
Yeah.
Well, it's 2 reasons. One, what is the version of FICO you're looking at? And then also, most of the accounts you have in your credit report don't even show on all 3 bureaus, right? So this all comes down to understanding the foundation of what is the right score I should be looking at, how many different versions of there are there, and what do they all mean? And the best place you can go for, you could go right on your phone, and you could go download My FICO, right? So it's directly from FICO.
Okay.
It is the only app that I'm aware of that is a direct source. There's third-party ones, like even we use a third-party one, but the direct source is from the My FICO app. And it will break down, here is your FICO auto scores, here is your FICO mortgage scores. It's already broken down for you. It's all in there. So most people go to Credit Karma.
Right.
And stop doing that too. The reason you don't want to go there is because it's showing your Vantage scores. And your Vantage scores is not what lenders are looking at. They're looking at a version of your FICO score. They do 2 completely different sets of math because they weigh out the factors that influence your scores completely different.
Yeah.
So for example, payment history is the #1 influence to your score going up or down. On the FICO model, it controls 35% influence. Now, converting that over to points, The lowest your scores can be is a 300. The highest your score can be is an 850. So it's 550 points your scores can fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that 35% number, payment history, is 192.5 out of 550 points.
Wow.
Right? So that's the first factor. And that's on FICO. On Vantage Score, it's also the number one influence, but it accounts for 40% influence. So there's already a 5% discrepancy.
Wow.
The next category for FICO is utilization, the credit card balances.
Mm-hmm.
That accounts for 30% on FICO, and it's actually now the number 3 on Vantage, which is 21%. So there's another 9% discrepancy in the second category, and we still got 3 more to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area there.
Yeah.
Huh?
So they just do the math different. It weighs out the same things you do as a borrower different, and that's why it can be off 50 to 100 points. So Credit Karma is not the place to go, but when people hear, well, it's free and it's a guide or whatever somebody told them, no, don't listen to the guide. If you break a leg and you want to know for sure that it's broken and not just a fracture, and they say, well, you could get the x-ray and it costs this, or we could just say it's probably just a strain.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? You want to go get the x-ray and make sure your shit's not broken.
Yeah, I want proof.
So you want to make sure, what's the outcome? What's the damage? What's going on? I want to know definitely.
Yeah.
And you don't want to mess with your credit. Why take a free app that only shows you 2 out of 3 bureaus anyway?
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to because nobody wants to pay $30 a month or $40 a month to get access to what their actual stuff is.
Yeah.
And while I get it to a point, why would you not want the accurate stuff? Because here's an example. Most people buying a car. How many times are you going to go into the dealership not knowing what your actual scores are, have the finance guy pull your credit, find out you're a lot lower than what Credit Karma told you, and now you got to go call the person who you always call to co-sign your shit, and then figure out who you're going to borrow the money from for the extra down payment so it's the affordable monthly payment at a super high interest rate. All of that is worth I don't want to go through that. I'd rather pay $30 to $40 a month to my FICO to know exactly what my stuff is.
Yeah, because it gives you a good basis. I've looked at Credit Karma. I have it on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And before I got into this conversation with you, I didn't really understand, why is it always changing so much? From one month to the other, it jumps 20 points up, 15 points down, 1 point. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
I paid off a home mortgage, which gave me more available credit,
And you went down.
and it went down 100 points.
Yep.
A mortgage.
Yep.
I could see if I closed a store credit card or whatever, but I paid off a mortgage, $180,000 balance, swooped it off, and then it was we're just going to drop your score 100 points.
Yep.
Because you did bad.
Yep.
And so a lot of people get discouraged from that. It made me mad.
Yep.
And so now that I kind of understand how it works,
there's a level deeper to that if you want me to go into it on the real why that happens.
let's go.
right.
I'm down for that.
All right. I don't just want to be the one just fire hosing a bunch of stuff.
Well, I think this is important for people to understand the way that the scores do move around so that they don't freak out and go, well, now I got to wait another year to buy a house.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Because you don't.
You really don't, right?
Right. So here's the reason why when you have an installment loan like that, when you pay it off, it goes down. Because just like how we have to understand how the math is done on your FICO score to know what behaviors control it, well, you have to understand the business of who's reporting it. So TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian are a private LLC. They're no government-owned entity or anything like that. And they built a business model where they contact creditors to say, if you want to make a more accurate decision when somebody's applying to borrow money from you, then we can report that information for you for a fee. Okay? So what winds up happening is you have this mortgage, you get approved for the mortgage, everything's great, right? Then you finally go ahead and you pay it off. Well, when you pay it off, it now takes it from an active account that is reporting payment history every month, which means every month they're reporting the balance, they're reporting that you paid it, the date that you paid it. Every stroke of a key has a dollar attached to it. Not an actual dollar, but a dollar amount attached to it. And they're contracted with the creditors to pay this pay to report this information. So now you pay off the mortgage. It goes from an active account to a closed account. Still positive. It's not bad. It's a good thing you paid it off.
Right.
But now they know starting next month and every month after that, they no longer get paid on that account. So it is that slap on the wrist to you to say, hey, you paid it off, and being debt-free is good, but for your credit, it's not good because they want to see what is your ability to pay back active debt. Are you a good borrower or bad borrower? They don't care what you did 6 months ago. They care about what you're doing right now.
Right.
And that's how they evaluate your risk level to give you a loan. So now that you closed it, now they say, okay, that account doesn't give us any more money. Score goes down. But you notice when you open up a new credit card, it goes up? Because now that's a new fresh account that you just helped them contract for free, no affiliate pay or anything. You got the money, it reports on the credit report, you just helped them earn money and your score goes up.
Wow.
Pay to play.
That's a sickening
It is, isn't it?
reality.
Yeah.
And that, it's good that you kind of break it down like that because, like I said, people are going to get discouraged if they're trying to do the right thing and then they're smacked on the wrist for it. It's like, why should I even pay my bills if my score is going to go down? Right. So
you don't go down a lot more.
You don't want to go that direction.
Right.
For sure. Okay. So now that we understand kind of the way the scores go, can you get into some of the basics on like where people need to go or like some of the first steps that they need to look at in order to start gathering information to adjust their credit scores? Yep. Something in that realm, like what are the most important things that they can be doing to improve their scores? Not big leaps and bounds. We're talking baby steps.
Right. So baby step is you got to buck up and you got to pay to find out what your accurate scores are and what's reflecting and reporting on there. Because regardless of what you think happened, whatever they're reporting, what they say goes. So you could have paid something on time and you had no idea the reason your score was down was because it's actually reflecting you were 30 days late, even though you weren't. Right? The simple thing of having good credit is in order to have a good score, you got to be a good borrower. In order to be a good borrower, you got to be actively borrowing. So what happens is buck up and pay the $30 to $40 a month. The reason that there's that $10 difference, by the way, is depending on how often they update your report. I think the $30 a month is every 180 days, so every like 6 months, or it may even be 90 days. But the extra $10 a month gives you refresh reports on all bureaus every 30 days. Got it. Right? So if you're thinking about buying a home soon, buying a car soon, if you're making a major purchase, you can always upgrade and downgrade throughout time. There's no contracts. They don't have any contracts with it, but you got to know what's going on first.
So will that impact their credit score if they are monitoring it every 30 days?
Okay. It won't. I wish it did, but it won't.
Oh, no, I just figured it might show us an inquiry, and the inquiries bring the score down.
So that's actually why you pay to avoid the hard inquiry from happening. So, so that's why it's worth paying for it, and that's why they have a monthly reoccurring fee, along with other benefits. Like they give you up to $1 million of identity theft coverage. You can have the actual Fico Score simulator on there. All the reasons that people like Credit Karma, there's all of that plus significantly more, all included at that $30 to $40 a month, depending on what they pick. Also, without ever adding the hard inquiry on any of the bureaus. So you're getting refresh scores and reports every 30 days without ever getting an inquiry, on top of all those other things just for that. That's so it's cool. Huge. Yeah, there's so many benefits to it. And no, I'm not like affiliated by them or whatever. I would drop you a link if I was. But I just want to make sure, that people don't think, oh, man, you're probably just saying that so you get paid on it. I don't. My FICO, if you want to pay me, that's cool. But I don't get paid for it.
Right.
So anyway, so now once you identify and you know what your scores are and you see what's going on and you realize, ooh, I didn't know that this was reporting.
Right.
It's actually pretty easy to fix those things. Look at any negative accounts like collections, charged off accounts, or maybe a massive amount of inquiries when you did go to the car dealership and they shotgunned your credit to every, bank to see if you're getting approved.
Yeah.
You can dispute those things. Not a problem. And essentially that's what we do. But again, you can do it yourself. So you want to look at the negative accounts, you want to identify what they are, and if there's anything that shouldn't be on there, like if you never did miss that payment, you want to go ahead and challenge that because there's something called the FCRA. That's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And subsection 609 states that us as consumers are entitled to a 100% accurate credit report. Not 99.99, 100. So something as simple and stupid as I have proof that the payment was on time, but you're reporting it that it was late. You can send it in. They have to update it. and there's a collection account that should have not been there, a charge-off account that should not have been there, or a stack of inquiries when you only gave one application and got a loan with Capital One, but they got 10 other inquiries on there, you can dispute those things to get them removed.
Wow.
Because your credit report, I like to say, look at it as like your reference sheet if you're applying for a job, right? If you had a previous job, you just quit, and you're trying to go with this big company for a big position, you're not going to put on the reference, oh, here's the manager that I cursed out on the way out, right? You're not going to do that. You're, you know, hey, Mom, would you mind being my manager from the last place just in case they do call? Right? So that's what happened on the credit report. You're handing in your resume to the credit bureau to say, hey, I want this $300,000 loan for a home. Hey, I want this $60,000 loan for a car, whatever it is you're applying for. They're going to look at it and assess your risk level. So look at the negative accounts, and you want to try to dispute as many of those as you can, because you're just changing the ratio of how many negative things report and how many positive things report. So how many people have something bad to say about me? How many people are going to say good things? And as you know, when you're applying for a job, the more references you have that all say good things increases your chances of getting the job. That's exactly how credit works. So now moving on to the positive accounts. If you do have any active credit cards and they are over that 30%, right? That everybody, you know, I think most people have heard it at least one time. Don't go over 30% because it brings your score down. As long as you're maintaining below that 30%, you're solid. But if you notice your scores are down and you're like, well, Dylan, I don't have any collections. I've never missed a payment, but I don't understand why my score is still down. Hey, do you have any credit cards? I do. What do their balances look like? See, so COVID and
so
my
I'm a
job,
little maxed
right?
out.
So what you want to do is you want to manage those credit cards. You want to get them below that 30%. Actually, specifically speaking, or getting like another level deeper, you want to have anywhere between 1 to 9% be the reporting utilization. That will give you another increase in your score, because remember, utilization controls 30% influence of your score going up or down. It controls 165 points. So imagine if you're trying to apply for something and they say, oh, I'm sorry, by your score, you don't qualify. The quickest way to increase your score, if you have active credit cards and you know there's a balance, scrounge up the money, figure out a way to do it. Go to your bank if you have a good relationship with them and say you need a consolidation loan. Ask your rich uncle or somebody that you know or whatever, get the money together and pay those down, because as soon as you pay those down, you could see a significant increase. So overall, to sum it up, negative items, try to remove as many as you can. The positive accounts, like your credit cards, if you have balances, get those balances down. Believe it or not, leaving a 1 to 9% balance on the card will have your score higher than having a $0 balance on the card.
Does that kind of go back to again, it's not reporting any differences? It's kind of like it's a dead account?
Right. So let's say if you do have an active credit card, just since we're on that, the reason that you want to have a balance on there, no matter how small, as opposed to it being a zero balance, is because with that zero balance, they're not reporting an actual on-time payment being made that month because there's no balance that you made a payment on.
Right.
And then eventually the credit card companies, which, yes, it's their job to make interest off you and they hope you spend it. Well, if you don't spend it and you're like, all right, I finally paid it off, I'm going to throw it in a drawer and I'm never going to use it again. Well, your first warning is going to be when they drop your limit. And then the second warning is going to be when you try to swipe it and they say your card's declined and you're like, no way, I don't even have a balance on it. And it's like, oh, no, it's closed because you haven't used it. And we actually reissued that to somebody else who was going to use it and is paying 25%.
Yeah, that happened to me with like a furniture credit card that we had. It was like a Synchrony Bank top. They offer you, the 12 months, same as cash, but they still give you like 5,000, 6,000 credit. Well, we put the stuff on there and paid it all off early and never used the card again. So about a year later, zero use on the card. They sent us a letter in the mail, said they canceled the account, closed it, and
score went down.
There goes the score. Yeah, it's crazy. 30 points that time.
And see
for
how
what Credit
drastic
Karma
it is?
Yeah. It's like, hey, you better go get some more credit.
And just a quick side note, just because you mentioned it, the reason that I have such a problem with Credit Karma is because their whole business model, and they tell you, you can see it in the app. The whole business model is anything that's listed on there. Like, you ever go up 1 point and they say, oh, the new shit that you're qualified for, that you get approved?
I get it all the time.
You ever try to get it and then it brings you to the company website and then you still get denied?
Yeah, they're like 100% approval rate. And then it's like, in the fine print, like, you really don't qualify. They're just.
Because like those estimates.
Right.
They're selling click ads, man. That's what they do.
Credit Karma in my industry is what Zillow is to your industry.
Right.
Right? That Zillow estimate and all that, it's the same thing.
Complete 100% bullshit.
And that's why having that Vantage score, knowing the difference in a Vantage score and FICO is so good to know, because Credit Karma is leading you to believe that you're going to be approved for this. Well, then they carry you to the Capital One site that is using your FICO score, right? That can be 30, 40, 50 points difference. That is all the difference that makes you not approved.
Right.
Now you just got a hard inquiry for no reason. But if you did get approved, every time somebody gets approved on that Credit Karma model, any one of those things that are listed, they get their affiliate pay, and that's how they make their money.
Wow. Unbelievable, man. That's crazy. So I don't want to take up too much time on this one right here, because I know you've got some engagements afterwards. But if I were to ask like one final question of you, what do people do? Like, say they find out they have collections and they got these credit debtors that are calling them, and it's not the original credit. It's the companies that have bought these loans or whatever the balances are for pennies on the dollar, and they're trying to get them to pay. Now, what would your advice be to those people that are trying to get those things removed from their credit?
Never pay your collections and don't answer the phone.
Right.
So dispute them and only do it by letters. I know that there's like this little buzz going around of like, hey, dispute it online. It's super fast. Dispute it through Credit Karma. Dispute it through Experian. Do it online. The reason they're incentivizing you to do it online is because when you click that little thing, I agree to terms and conditions, you're actually waiving your rights to go as far as suing them in small claims court for anything that's labeled inaccurate. So the process of the online disputing is, hey, I noticed this and this and this, and I want to remove this collection, right? You need to remove it. Well, then they respond back and they say, meets FCRA requirements, it's verified, and then you're stumped. You're like, oh, well, they verified it. Damn, all right, I guess I lose.
Yeah.
But nobody knows, unless you know the law, you can dispute the method of verification and say, I'm going to request this document, this document, this document, and I want to show proof of how you verified it. And if they can't provide it within a certain amount of days, it still gets deleted. Not if the collection is yours or not.
Right.
It's their burden of proof if they can prove how they did everything they said.
Right.
And which is why you want to do it by letter. Because you can't beat black and white. You can't change that.
Well,
but in online status, you can.
The processing time starts from the time that the letter was dated.
Right.
Like when you mail it out.
Technically, it's when they get it.
Okay.
So like for us, we do certified mail because we want them to sign for it
so
when they
get it.
get
So
it.
you know when it was signed. Yeah.
Right.
Same thing with us when we do eviction letters and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I would say don't pay the collections because there's something called the statute of limitations. And a collection will stay on your credit report for 7 years. It'll automatically fall off after 7 years. But here's the key, full disclaimer, from date last active. Right? So if you had an account in 2014 and it defaulted in 2020, it doesn't mean that it's going to fall off in 2021. It's going to be 7 years from 2020. So it's going to be 2027 is when it's going to fall off. Right? Wow. And that's a thing that people are being told. And it's funny because the debt collectors, those companies, are throwing out little ads and little educational blogs and stuff like that, not knowing they're masking it, not knowing that's who it's from, encouraging you to say, call us, we're flexible, we'll do a payment plan, we'll take care of it. Yeah. But what happens is a negative remark on your account, a collection, a charge off, whatever. The first 24 months is when it has the most impact. And every year after that, it hurts your score a little less, little less, little less, little less, till it falls off. But when you pick up the phone and you say, yeah, this is Dylan, who's this? Right? Or when you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be proactive and I want to go ahead and make that payment. And you go ahead and you call them and try to make a payment arrangement. It does not matter. It does not matter what the outcome is, because now it is timestamped that you called and whatever the conversation was, it now resets that statute of limitation. So even if you come to a settlement and you pay that collection, it will actually hurt you more than help you because it just reset the clock, put you back in that 24-month time period of that statute of limitations, even if you paid it. Because all that happens, unless you have the letter and you get the letter before you pay, if the agreement was out, pay it and you remove it, which most times they're not even doing that anymore now. But let's say you do have that happen. Until it comes off, it's going to hurt you more than help you. Just because you actively say, I'm going to pay it, don't think or assume that they're going to remove it. Because all it's going to do to your credit report is go from a collection, and the status is going to change to a paid collection. So they update your balance, which allows them to reset that statute of limitations to put you back in that 24-month hurt again.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Don't pay your collection.
Yeah.
Don't go to Credit Karma.
Because technically, it just depends on the way that they access that debt, right?
Right.
Unless they can prove that debt is actually yours, I'm sorry you bought that debt.
Right. And
I can't help you.
And I even go a level deeper now because they're starting to get a little bit privy to, people saying, hey, that's not mine, right? And they're like, wait a minute. So you're telling me you did not buy that 82-inch TV from Best Buy? That's not yours, right? So they got a little privy to that. And they actually adjusted some of the ways on how you're allowed to dispute with them based off that. So now I take a completely different approach, and I'm leveraging the FCRA and saying, hey, I'm not saying whether that's my debt or not. I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'm not saying I did do it. What I am saying is the balance you're saying that I owe is $1,000 here, $1,000 here, and it's $999.99 here. And by FCRA subsection 609, that entitles me to a 100% accurate credit report. You did not report that the information accurately, and because of that, I'm leveraging the FCRA to say I can either take you to small claims court or you can remove this off my credit report.
Got it. And it's all done on paper. Yeah. No, that's gold. I think that's important. I think a lot of people, they feel like
notes right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think you got a lot of people that truly do want to pay their debts back. They know they owe the money. They're
Right.
not trying to get
and
over,
that's okay. Yeah.
it's kind of like a whole level of guilt kind of sets in, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna pay this debt. They're not doing themselves any favors.
Right.
Like you should, if you got a debt you owe somebody, you need to get in touch with the original company.
Right.
And be like, before this goes to collections, figure out something with them because they're gonna sell that debt.
Exactly.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yep.
Now they just wrote that off. You don't owe Best Buy anymore.
Nope.
They're getting their money. Somewhere else.
Right.
So
and to add one more thing to that, what makes our company different than most, if they do go through us, is while we can successfully remove the entry off the credit report, which increases their score, makes them a more qualified buyer, all of that is great. But you ever hear when people say, oh yeah, they got all these things removed, but then like later they came back? The reason that they come back, well, one or two reasons, is because they never went back to try to settle that debt after to keep it off, right? So we won't coach somebody to say, screw all the money that you owe, just don't do it. What we want to do is make sure that stuff doesn't come back and say, hey, I know you're in a pinch and you're trying to buy a home because your lease is coming up and you don't want to sign another lease and this and this. Or your car just broke down, it was on its last leg, the leg broke and you need to get another car. Whatever the situation is, we're the fix that's going to get the job done. So now you could get the things that you need.
Yeah.
But what you need to do, and this is completely up to the client, like I can't force them to do it, but we say, okay, now the next steps are, here are all the accounts that were successfully removed. You need to go back to them and say, hey, we need to figure something out. Because at that point, if you settle, then you never have to worry about it coming back onto the credit report because they have no reason to chase you anymore because they got paid.
Right.
And nine times out of 10, they will settle for less than 30% of what the original amount is.
Right.
So
they
like
probably bought it super cheap too, huh?
8 cents for every dollar. Yeah. Because you always hear pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
8 cents.
Wow.
Yeah.
They was thinking of
that's the whole collection.
I figure out what I need, then dispute it, and then get it for 70% off.
Right.
Yes, that's literally what the whole collection game is. The reason that Midland Funding and all these places call you is because they bought your $1,000 debt for $80. They send you that settlement in the mail where you're like, hey, I know you owe $1,000. We can do it for $432. And you're like, well, shit. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. But nothing changes to the score.
Oh.
It resets everything. They got their money because they make the profit on the difference.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how it works. So
Wow.
you got to be able to beat them at their own game, but you can't do it till you know the game.
Yeah.
And that is one of the hugest differences here is that we're not just telling people, hey, pay us and we're going to send some letters. I mean, even in the logo I rebranded, we focus on the education piece before anything.
Yeah.
We want to educate people and show them how credit works and give them this information at no cost.
Yeah.
So then that way they can make the best moves moving forward. And even if they do want to try to fix things themselves, I actually just put out, it was like a soft launch where I gave them a do-it-yourself software so they could go plug their stuff in, import the report, and they don't even have to hire us to do it. They can even try it themselves if they want.
Wow. That's crazy.
So where do I go buy this debt?
You're going to start yourself a debt collection company?
There is actually I do know somebody who does that. So like legitimately, I do know somebody who does that, and they have like an entire Facebook group where they teach people how to do it.
Huh.
And yeah, it's pretty intense.
You hire somebody from India to call during the day for pennies on the dollar to get pennies on the dollar.
Those are shark-infested waters. I don't know if you want to be associated with that. That's a whole, that's dirtier lifestyle than car sales. You know?
Yeah. Like people think car sales people are bad, but like
Collections people are probably way worse.
Yeah, especially when you break it down to them, like, hey, like, sorry, I just lost my house, and like my kid is like, we just found a tumor on his brain, and they're like, great, cash or card or
so you're gonna get that on a Visa or a MasterCard?
Right.
Well, I mean, it's got to be better than buying Doge.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty
My
optimistic on what's going on with that here.
Oh, I lost like 80% of my Doge. Thank you, Elon Musk, and your Saturday Night Live special.
You now owe me a free Tesla.
Right.
I don't even want.
I think he just started accepting Doge as payment for Tesla.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
See,
it was on Twitter.
Yeah, see, I don't know. Like, man, I don't know. I know there's people making money from it and stuff like that, but my quick opinion is just like, I want to take that same amount of money that I put to the side, and if I invested into my employees or I invested into my business overall, I can replicate the same outcome.
For sure.
You know, but
it didn't have an impact. It's down 1.93% right now.
Yeah, it's all good. So, in closing, really quick, give everybody really the breakdown on the James Warren Group and how they can get a hold of you and stuff like that while we close out here. So go ahead, man.
So the best way to do it is if you do go to our website, it is www.jameswarrengroupinc.com. We have all of our information in there. You can hit get started. You can get a free consultation with us. Even if you want to just talk with us about, hey, can you educate me more on this? If you have no interest in paid services, that is perfectly okay. Consultations are free. Go to our website. Check us out on Facebook. You could get me personally, Dylan Shively. And yeah, man, that's what I got as far as contact.
I like it.
So if you need credit repair and you want to support a veteran-owned business, reach out to them.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Looks like we got like 30-something people on the Wisdom app, which is more I think than bad. But you guys enjoy your week. Enjoy Christmas if you don't hear from us again. But see you guys maybe in 2022 possibly.
Let them ho, ho, ho.